The United States carried out additional strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. We take a look at operations on the ground in Gaza, and a cartoonist turned troll gives us a little insight into the information war raging online that I think actually ends up as kind of a positive story. What's going on, everyone? Let's take a look at some updates as it relates to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, or what started there and has since spiraled into a broader regional conflict. I'm recording this at 8 a.m. Central on Saturday, January 13th, 2024. Overnight, the United States conducted a second wave of strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. U.S. Central Command said that the USS Carney used Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles against a Houthi radar site that was used in an attack on commercial shipping yesterday, January 12th. This marks the 28th attack against civilian vessels in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden by the Yemen-based Houthis since November 19th. So yesterday's attack on January 12th came after the large attack by the United States and United Kingdom against 60 plus Houthi targets all across Yemen. We haven't really seen the results of that attack quite yet. There was some satellite imagery that came out that I'll play some of here. Kind of hard to discern. I mean, you can see that these attacks took place. Things detonated. There's char marks on the ground, but hard to tell exactly what was destroyed or what was damaged. We'll see. Never know if Yemen, the Houthis, the receiving party, if you will, is ever going to release that information. Now, the attack yesterday against commercial shipping came after that. So it doesn't appear, at least in the one day since that large-scale U.S. and U.K. strike, that the Houthis are stopping anytime soon. Yesterday, the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations said that it received a report of a missile being fired 90 nautical miles southeast of Yemen's port of Aden. They say that a ship reported a missile landing in the water 400 to 500 meters away, and then was followed by 3 small craft, supposedly or presumably some of the Yemeni forces, potentially the Houthi forces, considering boarding and seizing the vessel. There were no damages, no injuries to the crew or to the ship, and it looks like, after the fact, that was a ship carrying Russian fuel. So it looks like that was an accident, is kind of how that's being reported. There's no statement from the Houthis, which usually they put something out right away, even when they miss the ship or the drones and missiles are shot down. They put out a statement saying, we attacked one of these vessels. They didn't say anything about that. So it actually does look like in this case that the Houthis did not mean to target that vessel carrying Russian oil, which kind of speaks to the overall challenge in that area right now, right? Their targeting is not perfect, and there's commercial vessels trying to move through that area that are being targeted every single day. Now, I saw a lot of comments yesterday in support of the Houthis. Didn't expect that. Listen, there's a very real argument as to whether or not the United States should be this involved in the Middle East, or if our priorities are out of whack, or if the right response to what we've seen so far was these series of strikes a couple nights ago. All of those are very, very valid conversations. But the Houthis, they're not friends of the United States, right? They do not like us. Just a reminder, their flag right there for everyone to see says, Allah is great, death to America, death to Israel, a curse upon the Jews, victory to Islam. So again, I think there's a space for all of the debate around U.S. actions in the region, but I don't think we should mistake the Houthis for allies or close friends by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, yesterday they put out a statement saying, quote, our war is moral, and it is not with the American people or the British people, but rather the Zionist gang that rules Washington and London, and which has caused many tragedies around the world, and even led to the death of many American soldiers in senseless wars. Bringing down this gang is the responsibility of all people, including the American people and the British. So in terms of a response from the Houthis, the Iranians, or anyone in the so-called axis of resistance following the U.S. and U.K. strikes the other night, hasn't really happened, at all. There were a lot of reports that turned out to not be true of significant attacks against U.S. forces in the region and U.S. naval vessels in the Red Sea. None of those appear to have materialized, just rumors. There were 3 rocket or missile attacks that have been claimed by the Islamic resistance in Iraq against U.S. facilities there and in Syria. But I haven't seen anything, even on Iranian media, about the extent of any significant damages caused. Now, a missile attack would be notable. I'm not sure if that's just a translation issue or if missiles actually were used kind of in place of the traditional rockets and one-way attack drones. So a quick channel recommendation that I genuinely think a lot of you are really going to enjoy. If you like what I'm doing here, I think you're going to, eat up what Nick Laidlaw is doing at Battles and Beers. Nick is killing it over on Instagram. He's just starting to make the move over to YouTube, and I want to push him along that path. Like, it's really good content. I don't know anybody doing what Nick is doing, so go give him a follow, check it out, see if it's for you. But Nick tells first-person accounts from war from all sides. So, here in the United States, we hear a lot of stories from U.S. soldiers and military members in current and past conflicts, as well as our allies. We can find those all over the place. Nick does a really good job of gathering first-person accounts of, German soldiers fighting on the Eastern Front, Viet Cong fighting against American soldiers. He's talked with the Taliban before, and in the current war between Russia and Ukraine, he's got, equal number of stories from troops on the front line explaining what their situation is. So you can hear exactly what it's like for a Ukrainian soldier, around Bakhmut, and you can also hear from a Russian soldier what life was like, during attacks in Volodar. There's just, again, I don't know very many places that are doing that. Nick's awesome. Check him out. Give him a follow if interested. So turning to operations on the ground, there's been a shift in focus by the IDF recently. We've started to see some troops moved out of northern Gaza. There's been an increased focus in southern Gaza, and now more of a push into the central area of the Strip. I want to pull up a couple maps here put together by War Mapper. Great resource. The guy's doing incredible work. But I want to talk to just how challenging it is, what he's trying to do here, and how these maps, I think, can be misinterpreted at times. So these maps, it was very challenging for him, I'm sure, to put these together for the war in Ukraine, but it was incredibly valuable, for the most part, very, very accurate, and relatively easy, at least compared to what he's trying to do around the war in Gaza. And the reason I say that is the front lines are nowhere near the same. So when you look at these maps of the Gaza Strip right now, it's easy to look at this and think that the areas in blue are cleared, that the IDF has moved through those and cleared them of Hamas militants, and everywhere else is where they have yet to go. Further operations in the future. That's not the case. These blue areas really only need to be looked at as areas where the IDF has been or is currently operating. They are not secure. In fact, we're seeing reports every single day of continued Hamas attacks against IDF forces in portions of the northern Gaza Strip. But if you look at this map, it looks like the entire north is entirely clear. Just due to the nature of this fight, the extensive underground tunnel network, Hamas is still able to conduct pretty significant attacks in places where the IDF has been operating for weeks now. Now, Israel has said that over the past 24 hours, they seized and destroyed hundreds of rockets and rocket launchers. They say so far they've destroyed 700 rocket launchers since October 7th, which is a pretty loose term, given how Hamas sometimes uses like rudimentary tripods or even buried makeshift launchers in the ground. They'll use like corrugated roofing around a rocket buried in the ground, open up the front cover and fire that thing into Israeli territory. It does the trick. It's not accurate, as you can imagine, but it does provide the means to fire rockets into Israel. Either way, Israel says that since the start of air operations on or around October 7th, they have destroyed 700 of these launch platforms across the Gaza Strip. Then shifting over to the Hamas side, they have claimed responsibility for 9 attacks in the past 2 days against Israeli forces, which is a pretty significant decrease. The Hamas media activity, and more on this in a second, is a real roller coaster right now. There's not a lot of consistency to it. We've seen a couple days where there's just multiple videos, multiple reports talking about 50-plus attacks against Israeli forces. And then, like yesterday, all they talked about was the U.S. attack on Houthi forces and the Hezbollah attacks against Israeli elements in the northern portion of the country, and then Iraqi resistance groups firing rockets at U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria. Nothing at all yesterday about attacks in Gaza. It's hard to read a lot into that in like any direction. I mean, any fighting force, be it a conventional military, militia, or a terrorist organization, in this day and age is just constantly pumping out propaganda to show progress. Here's what we're doing. We're still in the fight. We're still engaging enemy forces. An overall decrease in a media presence doesn't really help Hamas at all. So it's hard to tell exactly why that decrease has occurred. But again, it's kind of a roller coaster. One day there's nothing. The next day there's a ton of news. So, read into that or don't, however you will. However, Hamas did say that over the past 24 hours, they detonated a booby trap at the entrance of a tunnel while Israeli forces moved in to clear that facility. They say they fired a surface-to-air missile at an Israeli helicopter. They said fired, didn't say hit. I feel like if they hit a helicopter, that would have been what they talked about. So Probably best to view that as an attempted strike against an Israeli helicopter. And then they fired rockets into Israeli territory, which is notable. Even though it was just one announcement, not clear how many rockets that actually was. But here we are, right, 2+ months into the ground war in Gaza, and Hamas still has the capability of firing rockets into Israeli territory. So we are all targets in the ongoing information war. Like it or not, it's just what it is. Whether you're making content around war, conflict, and national security subjects, consuming that content, leaving comments, not commenting, or just have no interest at all, doesn't matter. Too bad. You're still a target by one side or another in a variety of conflicts that are trying to shape public perception in their favor. And there was an interesting article in Al Jazeera where a guy dove into this head first, knowing what he was getting into. He was still surprised, but I think there's some positive takeaways that I thought were worth bringing up. So Khalid Al-Bai was a cartoonist, and he wrote in Al Jazeera how I stopped being a cartoonist and became a troll. I said that he began putting together these cartoons. They're serious cartoons, not designed to be funny. He was putting them together to challenge narratives and foster open discussion in what he calls this new virtual town square, which I think a lot of us can agree on, the internet, social media as a whole. He started doing that on Instagram, but he mentioned this echo chamber effect that I think we can all relate to, where he said he noticed more and more that people were just being shown things that kind of reinforce our own beliefs, whatever they might be, right, wrong, or in between. That's kind of what these platforms, the algorithms, show you over and over and over again. I think there's been multiple studies to kind of back that up. And what I like about this article is Al-Bai says that over time, he could no longer bear the reactions to my cartoons. It was only likes and praises and no discussion, engagement, or critique. I think that's really healthy, no matter what your stance is on any topic, to find a place where there's genuine, honest back and forth, right? Not just trolling, not just trying to bring someone down or attack the other person, but if all you ever hear is "you're wonderful, everything is great, this is perfect," to his point, he's probably not making the impact that he wanted to. Then when the war kicked off on October 7th, he said on Twitter and Instagram, he started tagging his cartoon posts with opposing hashtags and engaging with Israeli accounts, be they pro-war, anti-war, artists, journalists, or straight-up government-paid propagandists. And he talks about how when he did that, he went from a very heavy pro-Palestinian audience that, again, agreed with everything he said, was very supportive of all of his views. He jumped over to the other side, right? Then trying to get into the pro-Israeli side. And he said it's like it's this parallel alternate universe where the facts are all just a little bit different, but they all align with that point of view. And he talked about how the issues are the same. Both sides are out there talking about how they're suppressed. The world is out to get them. Major companies and news organizations don't report honestly in their favor. And it was just, again, this parallel universe on the same app and the same platforms, talking about the same issues, just two essentially different realities, if you will. He wraps up by saying, we cannot continue existing in parallel timelines where competing and exclusionary narratives thrive, deepening divisions. And he raises the point that this is not just the ongoing war in Gaza. It's not just pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli accounts that have these, parallel conflicting timelines. It's every issue around anything. That's just the nature of the information war right now that we all live in. He doesn't offer up a solution, which, to be fair, I don't know that there really is a good solution right now. I would say, for myself included, a takeaway for me is get out there and try to consume opposing point of views as much as possible. But that's so much easier said than done. We all only have so much time to take in information on any given subject. But either way, I'll link that article in the description below as well. I think it was a good read and something worth thinking about when we're learning about this conflict or really any other topic at all. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if interested in national security subjects, be sure to check out the sit reps I put out on Substack. Link is in the description below. Substack now also has ad-free, sponsor-free videos that go live about 1 hour before they're up on YouTube. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.